Hey guys, I hope you're all doing very well. Welcome back to another video. And today I'm going to be talking about Blue Beetle. Now, looking at the trailers for this movie, I think there was a lot of hype for this film. It did seem that DC were going to deliver on a good superhero. And looking at the trailers, it did look like there was something good that was going to come out of it. So I think everyone was very much anticipated for this movie. So now it's finally come out and I've finally seen it. Does this live the expectations? And has this shown that DC can make good films and redeem themselves? Unfortunately, no. And I think it even gets worse than that. I would even arguably say it's a pretty bad film. I don't think it's like awful, just abysmal all round, but there isn't anything I could even talk about. There is any redeeming qualities about this film. It's, in my view, very lackluster, and I think even the most annoying thing about this film is just there is really much a non-existent plot and also very horrible writing. So, all in all, I have to say with Blue Beetle, it's a pretty bad film. Now, I'm gonna kind of talk about the good things about this film because there isn't really much, and I kind of want to get it out of the way. So, the good thing about this film is the Blue Beetle character itself. I think they really had an interesting concept for this character, and when you actually watch it, you actually do think that there is something that can be added to the DC universe. You know, the character, the Blue Beetle character, has a lot of powers, a lot of interesting, just a very interesting character with some range of powers and a lot of redeeming qualities about it. Unfortunately, what I would say is what kills it is it doesn't there aren't really any moments in this film that you could really look back on with this character and thinking, yeah, that's a real badass. It's just it really just falls very flat in terms of the character's presence and his persona. And I don't know whether it's anything to do with writing or if it's just bad cinematography where they can't really sort of deliver on any action or moments. Now, I do think the action in this film is when you actually do get to those moments, they do deliver. But unfortunately, the action just doesn't really take much focus in this film. Unfortunately, what I will say about this movie is they don't really focus on making a superhero movie, but instead they kind of want to push for more of this sort of family undertone a bit, and they kind of push it very relentlessly where it becomes extremely irritating. And I think the film kind of loses its focus in terms of how it kind of builds up sort of emotions, how it builds up anticipation, and it kind of just falls very flat on very sort of generic writing and just lots of sympathy pity spits with family members and everything just spiraling out of control. You know just relationships blowing up. It's just like very cringe to watch for me personally, and I really think that's kind of some of the main faults for this film. I think it can deliver. This movie would have delivered on moments of good action and actually having a good redeeming superhero, but unfortunately, the way this film is written, it just doesn't show any of those redeeming qualities at all. But yeah, speaking about the good things about this film, is still even a struggle because it's still got a flaw. And I think this movie has what I would argue a lot of flaws. First of all, I think its story is so generic and so predictable. So basically, to kind of set up the tone, basically, the main character in focus is Jamie Reyes, who is basically graduated from university and he basically got his degree. And he basically comes home to where his family lives in Palmera City, where they basically just welcome him, congratulating him with his achievement. And now, despite all the unknowns about his family, they are in financial issues and they can't pay their rent, and the landlord's looking to kick them out. So basically, now, it's now down to Jamie to kind of find a job and basically to try and make some money for his family. And one of the jobs that he stumbles across is working for Cord Industries. And basically, Cord Industries, it has the sort of technology that they work with, is artifact called the Sacred. He basically retrieves one of the Sacreds and basically he becomes the Blue Beetle. That's really it. It's nothing really out of the ordinary out of in terms of his writing. Unfortunately, even with the pacing of this film, it doesn't really anticipate you to know what happens. Like most sequences of this film plays itself very safe to a lot of the modern movies nowadays. You're not really there's nothing really unexpected that you would think something is going to happen out of nowhere. Everything plays itself very predictable and very safe, which I think for a lot of modern Hollywood movies nowadays with big budgets, it's not a surprise. But although the story is very generic, there's a lot of things that I do think there are big problems with. I think the comedy, again, I keep talking about the writing, it's atrocious. And I really do mean it. Like, everything about the comedy is, or the writing, where there's always going to be dialogue, is always going to be up for comedy. And just coming up with a very sarcastic gag or line that will just sort of spit out of nowhere and just to kind of make the audience laugh a little bit. This one really puts it up very relentlessly, and it gets to the point where it's very irritating. I think even one of the characters in this film is kind of one of the main culprits for it. I think one of the characters is called Rudy. Yeah, Rudy Reyes, who's basically Jamie's uncle, and I have to say I really dislike him. Everything about him is just the quintessential Hollywood actor in this film or character that you would just hate massively because he's not really what I would describe, enthusiastic that he actually takes the role very seriously. It's just he takes it seriously in a way to make people kind of laugh at him, and that's been the constant theme for a lot of these actors in this role. No one, I don't really think any actor really delivered a good performance in this movie. It's either a very safe performance or it's just very lackluster, really. So, unfortunately, that's where I think a lot of this movie's faults lie. Just the story, the writing, and also really trying to deliver on any moments, which is a shame. But yeah, overall, if I had to really describe this film, I have to say this movie is underwhelming and extremely lackluster. But I don't think this is a completely awful film or a movie that you would just hate in every aspect. I think there are going to be people who would like this movie and like its ideas, but unfortunately, I think for me, watching so much of these newer movies now, it's so predictable and generic to the point where it's actually become so tiresome to watch. And I would probably say that I didn't enjoy this movie, to be honest. So overall, if I have to rate Blue Beetle, I'm gonna have to give it a 4.5 out of 10. It's very boring for me, and I really think this is such a big letdown for DC, which I kind of thought this was going to be a very exciting movie, that they were going to have a very interesting character, which they did, but unfortunately the writing and the story just completely let it down. So, yeah, overall, it's not, I wouldn't say dismiss this movie all round. If you want to watch it, you could watch it, and you might find something enjoyable or redeemable about it. But unfortunately, in my experience, I didn't see any of that. And yeah, that's about it. See you later.